So, hi guys, welcome back to the channel. This week, today is the second day of this week's series of being a unicorn. Glad that you would join us. If you have not subscribed, please consider subscribing, and thank you for everyone who has joined us. Thank you for everyone who watches on a daily basis. Really don't take it for granted. So yesterday we looked at the story of Mary and Martha, and we learned that even though they were siblings, they really had very different personalities, and each person stood by their own trait and by their own personality, which is something that is required of each one of us because we can never be the same. We are all very different. So today we will catch up on Esther. Esther is a woman in the Bible who I personally admire. I admire her for very many things. And please take some time to go and read the book of Esther, because I think it's really a book that we cannot tackle all of it today, but it's a book that has very many traits that we can learn. First, of Esther as a woman, but second, of Esther as a unicorn, because Esther stood out from all the other women. If you don't know, Esther was an orphan. She lost her parents and was being raised by her uncle Mordecai. When the king is looking for a wife to be the queen, Mordecai told Esther to try it out. And Esther was beautiful, both physically, outwardly, and in the heart. So Esther was obedient. Maybe if someone else was in the same position, they would have thought Mordecai is suggesting Esther to go and try out and go, since the king was looking for ladies, and Mordecai has suggested that you can take it as he wanted to sell her off and wanted to take advantage of her. But Esther never took it that way. Esther was very obedient. Esther was very humble, and he obeyed his uncle. And he went, and he was chosen to be the queen. Lucky her, amongst very many other women. When she was queen, she learned that Haman was planning to kill the Jews. And all this she was told by the same uncle who raised her, to mean that even if she became the queen, she never forgot where she came from. How many of us get into our dream jobs, our dream life, and forget where we've come from, forget the people who've raised us? You might be an orphan and you've been raised in a children's home, maybe raised by nuns. You might be an orphan raised by aunties. Maybe you went through a humiliating childhood and now you've made it. If the same uncle, same auntie calls you and tells you that I have a problem, do you listen? That is something we see from Esther, because as much as she was queen, she still listened to her uncle Mordecai. So Esther learned that Haman was planning to kill the Jews. And don't forget, she was a Jew. And she still stood for the rights of other Jews. And this is where first I want, even as we continue, I want us to stop at. There are things we believe in, but God puts us in a position where we have to fight for what we believe in. Maybe you believe that it is wrong to humiliate the poor or take advantage of the less fortunate. But since you're among people who are doing it, you're afraid to speak up. You're afraid to say it's wrong. You're afraid to say, no, this is not what I believe in. You're afraid to say it because you know at one point you were there. And so it is only your right to fight for that person. That is where the society has taken us to. Society has put us in a place where after you've grown, after you've progressed, you forget where you've come from. You forget you had a voice that once believed that this is wrong, that this should not continue. And now you start singing a new slogan. But what we see from Esther is, as much as she was now the queen, when she heard that the Jews were being killed, or there were plans for the Jews to be killed, she felt for them. And she knew how her battle is fought. Through prayer. When you have challenges, how are you fighting your battles? Is it sitting down with your friends over a cup of tea, sitting down with them over a cup of wine, over a glass of wine? Is it calling your friends and chatting of the way you've heard so and so is planning XYZ and you're feeling so mad? Or do you go down on your knees and pray to God? Esther prayed. Even before she invited the king and Hanan for dinner, she prayed, she fasted, she called her army, her prayer army. I hope you have one. And what I learned from Esther, what trait I learned from Esther, being the unicorn she was, is Esther was never afraid to fight for the Jews. Esther was not afraid to fight for what she believed in, for the people she believed in. And that's a challenge for all of us, because you might be in positions of power and everyone is doing something else, but you feel that, no, I'm past that. Huko nimetoka. Huko sirudi tena. Hiyo ni shida yao. Hata mimi nimetoboa. Wacha watafute njia yao kutoboa. But I doubt God has raised you to the level you are at now for you to stay there. It was actually to raise other people up. And you all know the story. Esther requested the king and told the king what was being planned. And eventually, Hanan was killed. And Mordecai was given a very high position in power. And and the story continues, and it's a beautiful ending. But if Esther had not stood up for herself, had not stood up for the people around her, all this would not have happened. But remember, she stood with God. There are so many things that you want to stand up, but you feel that your voice is not loud enough. You feel that you do not have, as much as you're in a position of power, you do not have the strength to actually fight. Very many things. Whatever it is you're going through, take some time to pray about it. Take some time to fast. Find friends who will pray with you about it. So that when you set up the dinner with the person who is actually involved in all these things, God will have gone before you. God will have softened their hearts. But above all, you'll have stood up for yourself. You'd have stood up for what you believed in. And you'll have stood up for a voice. For that voice that could not be heard. Let's continue being the unicorns we are. And do not be afraid to stand out as a unicorn. Thank you so much. So, that's it for today. See you again tomorrow for another day, another lesson, and another life changed. God bless.